Hey guys, welcome to Up the Coast with Alex and Britt. We are officially on episode 3, week 2 of the 2026 softball season. So there was a lot that went down this last week, a lot of fun, a lot of craziness still in the whole month of February. I think we would both agree. Britt, where's your head at right now?
Still spinning a bit. I think this past weekend is one of the marquee weekends in our sport. I mean, you get all the best teams in Clearwater, Florida, and let them battle it out. And I think this field, they said it multiple times, but I agree that was probably the best field they've had ever for this tournament. It definitely had that postseason World Series feel, and there were some really phenomenal games. A lot of softball on TV, which is great this time of year. Get people interested at the beginning of the season, let them latch on to a storyline, a superstar, because there were a lot of superstars out there. And I sat on my couch and I watched a lot of softball.
So much fun. Agree. I also love how the ESPN app now is doing like the split screen view where you can see the two games happening simultaneously, which I can't even remember if we've talked about that on the podcast yet or not, because I know we've talked about it personally, but that's one of my favorite features because I definitely had that going all weekend long.
Yeah, I love that, but I just wish they would let me pick which games I got to put in the little box.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm not going to be greedy yet, but I feel like hopefully by next year we can pick what we want because there's so many good games going on at the same time. And we're just in the second week of the season. It's pretty incredible that, we have Niger Kennedy, Carlin Pickens, all of the superstars, Jordy Fromm at the same tournament, and we've got a good ACC showing too. I appreciate the ACC. It was a big discussion. We talked to Lonnie about it, that as a conference, they needed to put themselves out there playing tough teams, and we had 3 teams down there doing that, and then Stanford had some tough competition that we'll get into at their place. So it was a great weekend, and I think it was a lot of fun. I think Clearwater does a great job. I mean, teams, you have to be invited to get there, and they take very good consideration of who they bring in, and the production's great. Everything's great. The only thing that I think it needs a little facelift with the facilities, but I did hear Michelle on one of the broadcasts mention something about renovations. So I think they're going to keep going and getting better every year, which I think is awesome.
We'll see. So let's talk about Clearwater a little bit and recap kind of how our ACC teams fared. You want to start with Florida State?
Yeah, let's get it. Well, the big takeaway I think that you can take from Clearwater before we dive in is that winning's hard. Yeah. It's only the second weekend, and out of all the teams, softball teams in the country, Power 4, mid-major, there's only 7 teams that haven't lost a game yet. And that's pretty impressive. Only one team came out of there unscathed, which was Tennessee, and they looked really good. But Florida State, they went 3-2. They had victories over Liberty, FAU, UCLA, which was a great game. They came out with a big lead that UCLA game, and then UCLA kind of fought back, but they were all able to hold them off. And the big game that everybody was, at least I know you and I were looking forward to, was that Texas Tech game. And 3-2 loss for Florida State, and they were about 2 inches away from a go-ahead home run late in that game and ended up getting doubled off. But that was an incredible moment. It just shows you how close they were to that game. And then they dropped the one to Tennessee pretty handedly. But, it was a good showing for them. I think that Texas Tech game, if that goes the other way, if that ball flies just a little bit further, it's a completely different look on Florida State. But I think people that actually watched the games walked away with a really good feeling about the Seminoles.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that you look at what Florida State's doing right now, I think the talk of the town for them is their youth. They're starting a lot of freshmen. Yes, they have some good returning talent, 3 All-Americans, still waiting to get Kennedy Hart back in the lineup, but I think that's going to be, in a matter of no time. But what their youngsters are doing is super mature out there on the field. Yeah, and on paper, the games that they lost were the games that they were supposed to lose. Right. Do they ever walk onto a field? Does anybody walk onto a field feeling like they're supposed to lose? Probably not, but I think they should be proud overall.
Yeah, you mentioned the youth. I was really impressed with Bella Dimitrievich going against Texas Tech. She went 3 innings, gave up 1 hit, and had 3 strikeouts against an all-star team, if you will, that they've put together at Texas Tech. And that was really interesting, too, because Texas Tech has all these transfers, go out, get the marquee names, big money names that you can bring in, and they got them all. They brought them all to Texas Tech. And Florida State, 0 transfers in, 0 transfers out. A lot of youth, and it was like watching this experiment happen in real time. Who's going to oust the other? What's the right way of going about this now with the transfer portal and the NIL in our sport? We saw it in football and the big money sports. Yeah, Indiana turned around their program really quick and won a national championship. but can that work in softball? And I think that experiment is ongoing, but Florida State and Texas Tech were neck to neck, 1-run game, a couple inches away from it being a completely different outcome. So I thought that part of it was really cool. And for the youngsters on that team, the freshmen, all I can think about is that Florida State's really, really good this year, but the next 2-3 years, my God, they're going to be great. They're going to be so good.
Yeah. I also loved during the Texas Tech game in particular, I did like a UCLA win because I love when the Bruins lose. I'm sorry, I do. In the Texas Tech game in particular, during the coaches' interviews, I thought it was super interesting listening to Jerry Glasgow's talk with the broadcasters and just about how like Nyjah was going to start the game. And then he realized like Lonnie kind of changed her mind or like they weren't throwing, who they expected to see, which was Frantic at first. And then, Texas Tech like pivoted immediately too. So I kind of was interested to see like, like how much are you being influenced right now to throw Nyjah versus Frantic and the head-to-head matchup to then give the ball to Caitlin Terry, which obviously she's really good too. But
yeah, I thought you made that point. I also thought it was interesting that he can anticipate who Lonnie Alameda is going to start. Like, who knows that?
Yeah.
Because she did it again. She's putting all of her pitchers in games, different situations, starting, middle relief, closing. I mean, she's putting them in situations thinking big picture. So if you think you know who she's going to start, you're crazy. And that's why you're wrong, Jeremy. But he did say he was going to wait for Nyjah to pitch in Tallahassee, but he ended up having to bring her in that game. So
yeah,
it was fun. It was a fun chess match to watch.
Yeah. And if anybody out there has a secret sauce to figuring out who coach is going to throw, just let us know.
We've tried to get it from her.
Yeah.
We can't get a straight answer.
Right.
But
so let's talk about the Blue Devils.
Okay. Yeah, they were very competitive. I think after coming from the UCF tournament and then going straight to Clearwater, well, they actually came back home because they have to go to class, but then went back down. They had a really good outing. I think that Missouri game kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth, losing that game and then getting smoked by Georgia, which I did not expect. But Georgia put up a lot of runs on a lot of people. But they had big wins over Texas A&M, LSU, and Oklahoma State. And for a team that's still trying to figure out who their number 2 is, I think that's a really good showing for them. And I really liked what I saw from Duke because they were fast, they were athletic. The top of their lineup, though, is really carrying this team. I think the top 4 or 5 hitters were responsible for the majority of their production. You're going to develop those other players at the bottom, and you kind of expect that, right, at the beginning of the year for the top to be carrying. But overall, I mean, like Layla Lamar looked great getting some more action out there. I know you had a couple, you really like a couple of these players on this Duke team.
Yeah. I do. I think that Layla Lamar had a great weekend. I think she's coming into her own. Again, this is somebody that is coming from Florida, but didn't have that everyday playing experience. And not that she necessarily has it now, because I do know that making the lineup right now for Coach Young is tough, but she's earning her way and earning those opportunities. So between Layla Lamar, Tarina Jones, and Jess Oakland, like I think they're great pickups and great additions to this Duke roster. You've got young talent in Gabby Shattuck and what she's going to be able to do. And so and then Jada Baker, she's a redshirt senior in the 9-hole. Like, come on. I don't even care necessarily about the numbers that she puts up. Her confidence, her maturity in the bottom of the order. Like, I just think we've got to give some of them time because it's hard. We're sitting here comparing them to Amina Vega, All-American, Deanna Jennings, like so good, right? Amaya Burgess is coming into her own too and trying to figure out, where she fits in this new lineup this year too. So we just got to be patient, I think, with Duke. We see signs of brilliance. Like you said, they do a lot of things well. They're super athletic. They run the bases with the best of them, maybe some of the best in the country. And then, of course, like their defense, they always step up. We just saw today that catch by Layla Lamar made the SportsCenter top 10. Like, so cool. So cool.
I guess my 2 big takeaways from Duke was Cassidy Curd looked good. She looked sharp again. She looked like she did 2 seasons ago, her freshman year. And I think she did a lot of, in the off season, some hard conversations with herself and really got back to the old Cassidy Curd. And she looked really good. And that was really exciting. And the other thing, it was, you saw them in person last week. I didn't, but I feel like the vibe's different than it was last year. I feel like the vibe last year was kind of going through the motions, getting through games, just doing it. But they're having fun. They're playing together. There's a good vibe, aura about this team, and that can take you a long ways when you have that kind of talent.
Yeah, agree. I do think Cassidy Curd looks really good. I think that she is elite. I do think she's throwing too many pitches, and that's just considering being able to sustain her throughout the season, as well as, having battled through injury and probably going to for forever as long as she plays. I'd really love to see her pitch count go down. Good news is the outcomes aren't terrible in regard to, like, there's not a ton of walks. She's just getting deep in accounts. She is obviously, like, losing a couple batters here and there. Like, there are some walks happening, yes. But I think overall it's not egregious by any extent. And if she can just kind of rein in those 3-2 counts, really, I think she'll see even more success, because then she's not having to pitch as many pitches in the zone, right, where people are maybe getting those hits.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the biggest thing too. But then you've got, like you said, for a team that's still figuring out their number two between Mallory Wheeler and Lottie Hawkes, and it could be a couple of them right now, right? Like it might be a two-headed monster as the number two spot. So we'll see. We'll see what we've got.
Yeah, and I think going against this tough competition and some of those transfers and playing at this level, it's great to do at the beginning of the year. I mean, it can be a little daunting, but if you want to develop a good number two, you got to put them out there and see who can perform. So I love what I saw from Duke. I really do. I wish that Missouri game didn't go the way it did, but it happens. It happens, but I think they should be proud, and I know they're going to go out and have some more tough games we'll get into later this coming week, but they're in a good spot.
Yeah, let's give our flowers quickly to NC State, who was the last team from the ACC that went to not Mary Nutter, that's next week. Went to Clearwater and the Shriners Invitational there.
Yeah, they're still building. They did lose a lot in the transfer portals, so to go down to Clearwater knowing that competition's there, it was a tall task, but they did get the win over Missouri. Lily Livingston, the freshman with the grand slam, first home run of her career in a big ways. That's a marquee win in the Lindsay Leftwich era, right? You come in second year and be able to go down to Clearwater, take a win back home. That's great for that team's morale and, moving forward. Good job. Nice job.
Yeah. Should we talk about our friends out west?
Oh, yeah.
Stanford.
How about this? They opened up the season last year in that brand new $50 million stadium, right? Beautiful. I mean, everything was great. Loved it. And then they had to pivot this weekend and go play at another college nearby, their home tournament that brought in Oregon and Kentucky and Santa Clara, and they had to go play at two different colleges because of some permitting issues, like occupancy issues. And to my understanding, they weren't even supposed to play in it last week. But it's just opening weekend. Maybe Jess was just like, screw it, we'll deal with that later. Ask for forgiveness later, right? But that was unfortunate that they had to go play somewhere else and we weren't able to watch. But they went out and they took care of business after that first game. That first game against Kentucky, they dropped. I don't want to make excuses, but having to pivot to a different field and whatnot. I mean, Kentucky could have those same excuses. They had to fly across the country and not play in the new stadium. But after that, they won 3 straight games. They beat Kentucky again. They got some revenge there. Big game over Oregon, took that one, and then Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah, super proud of what Stanford did. But yeah, super interesting situation. Like you said, they played last weekend at home, but then apparently weren't supposed to. And I'm not going to sit here and blame anybody by any extent because we have no idea. But you have to think, like, that's not even just a coaching decision. That's like a Stanford leadership decision. That's probably some county crap going on.
There's so much red tape, I'm sure.
There's so much. Oh my God, yeah. So also, like, Kentucky talking their shit a little bit online, like, whatever. Get over it, right? But it's all good.
And pouting about changing fields and sorry, no streaming now. Yeah, we're disappointed, but you go with it.
But like, don't you think Stanford's disappointed? Like, come on, like, duh. That's a big blow for them. Like, whatever.
I'm glad they got some revenge and split that with them just for that.
Okay, this is a Stanford team that looks good and solid, and I am excited to see what they're going to put together just this season, because, like, last season was such a good learning experience, like, without Nyjah and who are they going to be, right? Like, that re-identity piece, and I think that they're really stepping into their own. I was going to say falling into their own, but they're not falling. They're stepping very intentionally, so I like what they're doing.
The question that we had in the preseason, was it going to be good in the circle? Who was going to step up? And I think Zoe Pstrejko is definitely emerging as that ace. She had 11 strikeouts, her career best against Oregon. And Alyssa Houston, the two that has started some games, come in for relief, still has not given up a run in over 10 innings pitched. That's big. Taryn Kern, wow. I mean, just so freaking good. And then Ava Gall, she didn't play last year due to injury. She's making a big impact. Offensively, they're still swinging it, but in the circle, complete 180 from what we saw last year.
A lot of fun to watch. They can definitely hit the ball. So let's talk about Clemson.
They had a disappointing weekend. They kind of picked up where they left off last week. I mean, they're now 6-4 on the season. They went 3-2 this past weekend. They had wins over Wichita State, BYU, and Furman, but they lost big time to Arkansas. And then they lost a game to Texas State where they got shut out. They got shut out in both their losses. And their game against Texas State was the first shutout they've had in 32 games. That game just, it didn't look good. They had lost 2 challenges early in the game, 7th inning, close play at first base. They can't challenge it. Crash ends up getting tossed. I mean, it just wasn't pretty. So I'm glad they were able to come back and get the 3 wins. But we had this conversation last year when they started off, what was it, 0-6, something like that. And then it was all about finding their identity. And it didn't click until they played the pre-conference series or game against South Carolina. And then after that, things kind of turned around. So I'm not sounding any alarms in week 2 for Clemson. I think Abby Dunning and Sierra Manis in the circle are still adjusting to this team, this young team still adjusting, trying to find their leadership, trying to find their identity. The exact same things we said last year. And then they make it to supers and are 1 play away from making it to the World Series.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Abby Dunning stuff, you look at stats, right? And you can't judge a book by its cover and where they are right now. And we know that February is definitely a learning process, but just running some of the numbers quickly for Abby Dunning, who I do feel like we were probably the most excited to come in and see the impact she was going to have. And I still think she is going to have. Again, it's week 2, chill. But right now, she's averaging a run and a hit every inning, just over a hit per inning and just about a run every inning that she's throwing. So it's tough. And you just got to keep fighting, right? There's not much to sit here and say about it. It's just a bummer, I think, for right now. And then you look at offensively, they're a little slow. And some of the bats, Julia Noller wasn't one of the hottest bats last year in regard, to her consistency. She had just over 300, but she was second on the team in home runs. I think she put up 15 home runs in the 25 season. And right now she's hitting just over 100 and 26 at bats, has 3 hits. That's tough. And that's tough, from her perspective. Think about a fan or anybody else watching the game. She's probably dude, what do I have to do? Come on.
Exactly. I think that mental thing is going to be happening going into week 2 and not having the success that you had last year, especially second half of the season. That's tough. And a Macy Cintron, you would expect a Julia Noller and a Macy Cintron to have some standout performances already this year, and we just haven't seen much. And again, we don't know what's going on in that locker room. We don't know what's going on, but we also saw this happen last year, and that's why I want to freak out, but I trust in John Rittman. We've seen it happen before, so let's pump the brakes. I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, we could take our deep breaths together. So let's get into Virginia Tech. It's been a tough week. It was a tough week for the ACC for a couple teams. So Virginia Tech was one of them.
It was a great first week, I tell you. But then week 2, I mean, there's some great highlights, though. Let's not let the disappointment of Virginia Tech after beating South Carolina twice at their place and then going down to Charlotte thinking, hey, they're going to come out of here unscathed, and then drop 2 games to Michigan. Well, 1 individually to Michigan State and 1 to Charlotte. And Michigan State last week, though, was kind of the talk of the town. Hey, this is a pretty good team. And they beat Virginia Tech. They're they're the real deal. And then Charlotte beats Michigan State. And then Charlotte beats Virginia Tech. And the only 2 wins Virginia Tech that had this weekend were Villanova. And I think they're coming back to Blacksburg certainly disappointed. I don't know. Maybe they got too high after their showing in Columbia last week. I do know that they haven't been able to practice outside. Most of the northern schools haven't either. But I'm a little that makes me a little concerned.
Yeah, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. If Virginia Tech hasn't been able to practice outside, I would venture to say Michigan State hasn't been able to practice
Yeah,
outside.
exactly. Exactly.
So, like, you're at least playing teams that are kind of in the same boat, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, you just gotta figure it out. You gotta scratch and claw and push runs across, and doesn't always have to be the sexy stuff. Doesn't always have to be home runs. Like, you gotta figure it out. Situational hitting, and I think simplifying the game is tough. Obviously, it's why it's a very hard sport. But I also think that that's what the best teams do. When things get crazy, when it gets big, the moments get big, you simplify.
And I think that's so interesting because last weekend at South Carolina, they had to come from behind in both of those games. Like
Mhm.
they were able to fight back and have the big hits when they needed them. And that just didn't happen this weekend. And, they have the pieces there, especially in the circle. I'm still impressed with what they do in the circle
Yeah.
with Mazzarone and Kleiman and the group they have there. And hitting wise, I don't know. They just didn't have it this weekend. And I think they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and do it, look at themselves on the inside and be like, hey,
Mhm.
did we just think we were too good and could just show up and go down to Charlotte because they're a mid-major and take care of business? No, winning is freaking hard
Yeah.
and you've got to work.
Yeah, and actually, now that you mentioned that real quick about their hitting, like, again, this was historically, the last several years, a team that is some of the top in the country for home run numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and here you are, not hitting all your home runs, you've gotta find a different way to score, right? And that's where teams that take care of situational hitting, running the bases really aggressively to get that extra 60 feet, like, they just do a little bit better because they can scratch and claw and fight their way through games when maybe the bats aren't as hot, because that's just the reality. Doesn't matter when it's happening, doesn't matter the team you're playing. Like, you could be playing that mid-major team and be just getting sawed off, at bat after at bat, so
And a good example of teams changing their identities but keeping their culture is Florida State. I mean,
yeah.
for every year, it's like, are they pitching dominant this year, or do the bats have to pick it up? Do the speed? Do they have to play small ball? Do they have to force the defense to make the mistakes? What does this team have to do to win? And I think Virginia Tech is figuring that out now. Is like,
Yeah.
okay, we're not just going to hit 100 home runs this season, so we're good enough. But in what ways can we be our best to beat teams? So
Yeah.
that's where they are.
I like that tidbit, and actually just to pivot really quick away from Virginia Tech and just kind of like winning cultures and programs, like data is tough in today's day and age. There's a lot. You can utilize it, too much or maybe just right, depending on how you approach it. But I do think that one of the things I'm continually most interested in is like Florida State as an example, just because I've been able to sit in their scouting. Asking to sit in other teams' scoutings isn't, always the most like, why do you want to do that? Like, I just want to learn. But one of the things is Florida State had previously, I mean, this is like a 10-year thing that they've been doing, maybe a little more now because I'm a little bit older than actually I'm right at the 10-year mark. But they had determined what amount of runs they needed typically to win. Not every ball game, right? Some put up a lot of numbers, things like that. But to your point, figuring out the what we need to win versus the how we do it is what you change, right? And so I think that's a super interesting point. Just all these teams could probably utilize.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, we're still week 2.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not that deep. It's not that serious. So let's talk about Virginia too, because this was a team that had a good weekend. Not a lot of games, obviously, unfortunately.
And they're taking care of business.
Yeah.
I mean, last week, the only loss came to Arkansas, and they were able to come back and beat Arkansas the second time around. This weekend, they went 3-0, wins over Longwood, Toledo, and Delaware State. It's not the Clearwater level of competition, but they took care of business. I think they're 7-1 on the season so far. They've got to be excited where they're at. I think Courtney Lane is continuing to just dominate. She's got a .36 ERA in just over 19 innings pitched. She's only given up 1 earned run, 22 strikeouts to 3 walks. So it's been the Edom Bigham show in the circle for the past few years, but Courtney Lane is really emerging, and they have that 1-2 punch. You still have Edom Bigham, but now, hey, look, we got Courtney Lane too, which I think is great. And I think offensively, the top of their lineup is doing good. Macy is hitting over 500, and Jade Hilton is doing Jade Hilton. So I think their core pieces are there like they were last year that took them to postseason. And I think the great big surprise, even though she's been successful, just hasn't had the success she's having right now, is Courtney Lane, which is awesome for Virginia.
Yeah. Agree, and I think it's funny too because I was like, "Didn't Jade Hilton graduate? Like, how old is she in college?" Nope, still there, still crushing it.
Still,
Um, so yeah,
yeah,
but
they'll be a good team. They're a good
yeah,
team, solid fundamentally. I mean, their coaching staff, I know you absolutely adore them.
yeah,
Uh,
well,
good place to be for Virginia right now, sitting at 7-1.
yeah, love it. Let's talk about your Tar Heels because they're swinging it. You've got mixed emotions about it, but they're hitting the damn ball.
You can't not talk about them. They're one of the only 7 teams in the country that are undefeated right now. They're 8-0. They went 4-0 on the weekend. The stats are as a whole across the country are kind of iffy right now. So I'm not going to say they lead the nation or second and third in the nation. I'm just going to say they're top 5 and batting average at 458 as a team, on base percentage as a team over 500. They're slugging 872. They've scored 101 runs in 8 games and they've popped off 22 home runs. So
Yeah,
they are absolutely out swinging it. On Saturday, they played 2 games and outscored their opponents 44-0. And this weekend, what you put in our notes, 63-1 in 4 games.
and then I put holy.
You can't not talk about it.
Yeah, you can't not talk about it. Like they're not playing the hardest competition, and I know that as a former alum, you're like, man, like let's go. I want to get tested this early in the season when we can, because everybody's getting tested right now. But they are taking care of business how they should against the people they're playing, and not just how they should. Like when we say that, like that's a win, but they're putting up stupid numbers against some of these teams.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing is, if you don't go against the best competition, do you really know what level you're at? Do you know where to get better? And I think when Megan came in that first year, the schedule wasn't great. I mean, where it ranked in the strength of schedule in the country was not great. And this year, their strength of schedule is still not great. And I was expecting, each year, let's challenge this team a little bit more and more as we build our culture and get our feet wet and establish things here. And that's just not the case. So they're not getting the national attention that anybody else would that are putting up these numbers just because of that competition. But, that's their schedule and that's what they have to play. And these games don't necessarily help you come postseason, but they certainly can't hurt you if you drop any of these games. So the fact that they're taking care of business is a good thing. And I don't want to just throw a bunch of stats, but the fact that 12 different players have hit a home run in 8 games is just incredible. And Snod Thompson and Emily Leggett, a transfer from Virginia Tech, are both hitting over 600 with starting every single game. It's not just like they have 3 at bats, right?
Yeah.
And and the big problem with them last year was pitching, right? They were swinging it last year, but this year they've already had 7 different pitchers throw with a combined ERA of 1.52.
Yeah, it's legit.
On paper, it's awesome.
Yeah, agree. I also think the other thing is you look at not just their leading hitters in Sanaa Thompson and Emily Leggett, 8 of their hitters are hitting over 400. And that's not just people getting a couple at bats, like you're saying. Like those are your consistent players. If you're 1 for 1, you're not in that list because you just fall to the bottom of the way that the stats pull up. So yeah, it's pretty legit. Let's real quick talk about the stats issue and why you said we're not going to go too deep into it. I mean, there's a nationwide problem right now with stat keeping, and that's because the previous stat system that was being used, obviously it's stat broadcast for all of us on the external side, but the way that it's input, I think it was called stat input, if I remember correctly.
Sounds like
And
a good name.
I'm sorry?
Sounds like an appropriate name.
Right, like you would think, but yeah, not input really is how it should be named. And they changed ownership and something with the system has changed. So all of these, I'm just going to call them SIDs. And I know now they're called way different roles, but all the SIDs that are doing the stat inputting throughout the games are having a hell of a time. And it's an absolute cluster, you know what? To the point where like on the external side for us calling games, like I obviously keep my own book, but God forbid I miss something. Sometimes this technology is a couple innings behind. Like it's bullshit.
Well, you go on the NCAA website and there's just major discrepancies between what stats they have for teams and what's on the team's website. And each team is using a different program to put these stats in. And somewhere in this cloud world that it's getting mixed up, which doesn't make sense to me because I'm like, you get an official box score after every game. They're numbers. It's math. There's no gray area there. But right now, there's some major discrepancies, like over 50 points difference in batting averages, different number at bats. And it's not that they haven't uploaded the games played are the same. So I don't know what's going on. I really hope they fix it because, like you said, on the broadcast side, it's a pain in the butt. But like you think postseason awards and things like that, you can't get those.
Yeah. Would really hate for any of these athletes to get penalized because of bad stats. Just brutal.
Yeah. Another shout out before we move on. Louisville took 2 wins over Boston University, and that's a team that beat Duke last week. And they have a great pitcher in the circle, Ricard, and Alyssa Zabala went head to head with her with a complete game shutout, and they took that first one, they able to bounce back and get another one over BU. So that's big for Holly April and that Cardinal team.
Love it. Got to give the love. Got to give the flowers. You want to go to standout performances? Kind of who is your favorite player of the week?
I was kind of torn. Look at the numbers, and Snod Thompson, she went 11 for 13 and scored 12 runs. It's just like, wow, you can't really top that. But then I'm probably extra harsh on them because they're my Tar Heels, right? I'm like, well, they didn't really play anybody. I'm going with Taryn Kern again. Overall, she's hitting .682, scored 15 runs, 3 home runs, 2 triples, and 5 doubles on the season. And they are playing legit competition. They had Kentucky and Oregon this weekend, Oklahoma State this past weekend. And the games this weekend, she hit 400 with 8 RBI. And she's just a spark plug at the top of that lineup. And there's no letting up on her. So it was close between Sanaa and Taryn Kern, but I'm going with Taryn Kern. What about you?
You like her. Yeah, she's consistent in our conversations with just like who's hot. So she's a good one. I'm going to give a special shout out on my standout performance to Tyrita Jones. I think she was great. She hit over 400 in the Clearwater tournament. Again, just a huge pickup for this Duke roster and what she's been able to add with immediate impact. A couple home runs, a triple, a double, just
big
all the
runs too.
Yeah, big ones. 8 RBI on the weekend. And that was just from those games, right? But I do think my standout performance, without a doubt, I will say, is Amina Vega. I mean, she put up video game numbers against some of the top teams in the country. She hit over 650 in the Clearwater tournament. Like, just insane. 11 hits, home runs. It was a triple, a double, like all the things. She plays such a solid defense. She's steady Eddie. And this was somebody too, like obviously a returning All-American, had an injury last year. So just tough. Has fought for her career. Opening weekend, it was a hard weekend. And I say hard, I don't remember the numbers that she put up, but just watching her at bats, like everything was hit barrel, but a lot of it was hit up and hit opposite field. So really finding that groove now in week 2 against elite pitching was really fun to watch. Just kind of everything fall into place for somebody that's been consistently good.
Yeah, she's so smooth. It's like trying to find a hole in her swing is impossible. She can hit anything. And then she's got the speed to put the pressure on the defense and turn singles, doubles, triples. She's fantastic. Best second baseman in the country.
I agree with that. So, all right. What up? What should we get into next?
Let's just check in nationally, I guess. Tennessee looks freaking good, man. They look legit. They only allowed 3 runs so far. I mean, they've got pitching, they've got power at the bat. So Tennessee, I expect to be the new number 1 in the country, the only team to leave Clearwater without a loss. So, and then UCLA, they can hit the ball. They're pitching. Big question with some transfers out. Taylor Tinsley is kind of the only arm they have going for them right now. What's your thoughts on Texas Tech, though? The big marquee storyline nationally.
It's hard not to say they're really good, right? Because they are really good. It's different. Like you called them an all-star team, and I agree with that. Like they are, you cherry pick them, not from your recruiting, from other schools. And you can pay them in NIL, and I don't want to sound like, a hater when I say this. Like, it is what it is. Like, they've got the NIL money. They've got the opportunity. Like, I'm not opposed to the transfer portal. It's just, it's different. Like, you're comparing apples to oranges sometimes with what they have and how they've done it versus a team that's done it a little bit more organically. Take an OU and the dynasty that they have built in the program from year 1 to year 4, right? Like, yes, they get transfers out. Yes, they get transfers in on occasion. But, I mean, this Texas Tech team is a team of transfers. So, it's just interesting.
My takeaway with Texas Tech is I was expecting to see just pure dominance, I guess.
Mhm.
Like you look at their roster and you'd expect them to step on the field and not ever get out, not ever give up a hit. And that's a little extreme, but I just didn't see the dominance that I was expecting to see. And I think Jerry's got a big task ahead of him. If you look at your lineup and you can only put 9 people, 10 people in that lineup, and who are those people going to be and how are they going to mesh and how's that going to work? I guess they just didn't dominate. They're really good, like I had expected.
That's a great point. Well, it's like, that you hear it as a kid, like, yeah, you can take a team of all-stars, but it doesn't mean they're going to win all the time. And you take a team that, yes, they're good players. Of course, you have to be good to be able to compete. But then you talk culture, you throw in there how the team communicates and meshes and makes adjustments and just all the intangible things. And that's where I think the line is drawn. And I'm not saying Texas Tech doesn't have that. I need to learn them a little bit more as a program. I'm just saying that it's a tough task when you are taking all the best players from other teams and you're trying to put them together and form a very cohesive, good culture team.
I think they have the talent that's going to win a lot of games, but
100%.
I'm not convinced that they have the team that's going to win it all right now.
I agree with that.
You want to go to BS or no BS with AP?
Let's do it.
All right. So for here, these are things that I saw online, pulled out. People had opinions, and one of them is my opinion. We'll get to that one in a minute. But the first one I thought was talked about quite a bit, and I would love to get your BS or no BS on it. Saw a tweet that said marquee tournaments should be required to have video replay, assuming they're referencing Clearwater, Mary Nutter this coming week, also will not have replay. So, Alex, BS or no BS, marquee tournaments should be required to have video replay.
No bullshit. I think that the game played at this level with the best teams in the country for the most part at this event, you got to have it. I think it's a difference maker. And I think that sometimes games are won or lost on one play, potentially, right? Or they could very significantly impact. I think you got to have video replay.
Yeah, the amount of money that's going into these teams and sport as a whole, and the postseason implications that having a big win as opposed to a loss, it matters. It definitely matters. We love Clearwater, but I'm sure they've had conversations. It's probably a logistical nightmare or something, but I think if you want to put the best on, I agree. Yeah. All right, other one, not softball related, but I thought you would have an opinion on this. I don't know if anybody saw it, but the BS or no BS, the Olympian right now in the Winter Olympics confessing and asking for forgiveness to cheating on his girlfriend right after he wins bronze. Is that endearing, and should he be forgiven? BS or no BS?
Bullshit. Get that out of here. Cut me some slack. Are you kidding me? I have so many opinions on that of just gross.
What are you talking about? It's his biggest stage, and he's saying, "I'm sorry for cheating. Please come back to me."
Yeah, you should have made better decisions in the moment there, big guy. Sorry. You snooze, you lose. And clearly you didn't know what you had when you had it, so you're lost.
Yeah.
Her gain. And you know what? I hope she blows up of just hey, I'm chilling. I just hope she plays it so cool and so composed that, people just have no choice but to love her and support her.
Yeah, I'm sure she just wanted all this attention for people to know her that her boyfriend cheated on her.
Come on. Embarrass me more. Thank you. Got it.
Yeah. I think that ship has sailed, buddy. But good try. Good try. Men learn from that.
All
right. Last one. This one was from myself, from watching a game that happened that went under protest. So, Alex, we always throw in a new rule in here. This year, the new rule is any game that's under protest cannot just be played under protest. It has to be resolved, and then you play the game. Yeah. So, if a coach protests a game because of a rule and it comes back that the coach is wrong, that coach should be ejected for wasting our time. Full BS or no BS?
No bullshit. I think that, I do think there should be a consequence. I mean, an ejection is pretty tough, but I also start thinking of program fines and things like that. And I think that's even murkier water because you talk about financials, programs are funded differently and some are fighting, mid-majors are fighting for funding, right? So why try to penalize them that way? I do think there should be a punishment. And if ejection is probably the most consistent thing across the board for all teams, yeah, I think you're going to stall a game, you're going to challenge a rule and you're wrong. yeah, there's a penalty. And maybe it's just that game, like, right? Like you get tossed for the remainder of the game. It's not like additional anything like that. But yeah, it's like these coaches with the reviews and this and that. Like you miss it or you don't get it right, you lose it, right? You get it right, you keep it
Yeah,
and you get it back. So yeah, I think that you've got to have consequences in life.
absolutely. And to be clear, we're not saying eject a coach after they lose a review. This is
No.
after a protest. And I think if there's a consequence, maybe coaches will learn the DP flex rule. And maybe it'll be better for the game if we learn the rules of the game.
Well, exactly. Like you're testing the integrity of it sometimes and hey, whatever, you gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, when you're wrong, I do think there should be a consequence in that, like in the protest, because that stalls everything.
Yeah.
That's
20
a much
minutes
bigger deal.
for a very simple lineup situation that should not have been an issue. But
Well,
there we are, period. Those are the BS or no BS, and that is the final word. Do not argue with it. Alex has the final word. We had a great week. That was, so much softball, a lot of fun, and fortunately, we're going to have a great week of softball this week. What are you most excited to watch? What games?
I am really looking forward to Duke overall again. They're going out to Mary Nutter, the only ACC team at Mary Nutter, and I'm excited. They're playing some of the top talent. They've got Texas A&M, Oklahoma, UCLA, Oregon. Like that's a really good slate of games.
Yeah.
A
Couple
couple
rematches there.
Hopefully, yeah. Like I'm so here for it.
Duke is being tested. I'm really excited about Stanford, and I really hope that they got their permit issue, red tape stuff figured out because they're bringing in Arizona and Texas. So they're challenging themselves, and I think those are going to be some great games.
Yeah, and that's an Arizona team that just did beat OU in one game, in the opening weekend. Again, anything goes in the
And
month of
they also
February.
lost to Coastal last weekend.
Yeah. I mean, hey, like I said, anything goes, but there's teams out there that can be beat, and I think that's the coolest thing right now. Because yeah, I mean, they beat them one day, and I think they got their butt kicked. Maybe the next day, if I had to go back and remember, but you never know. You never know what you're going to get right now, and I just like seeing the really tough games. I am calling Notre Dame this weekend, so I'm excited to see them in person.
Awesome.
Yep. So Notre Dame is going to be in Orlando. I'm calling those. We got Virginia Tech at Georgia. Those are hopefully going to be good. Love the ACC, SEC matchups this early in the season. Florida State, Alabama, here for it. There's a whole tournament going on in Tallahassee as well. But those are the most notable games. Some other mid-majors there for the rest of the games.
Florida State, Alabama game. I feel like there's a little bit. They play each other every year. And that rivalry.
And I would have to look because I really don't remember offhand. Like I wish I was better at just memory. But it's been a while, I think, since Florida State's played Alabama at home. I feel like they're always going to road stadium just because they conveniently tack on, it to a road trip at some point. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it'll be a great week. Is it going to be the best week? Probably.
Hope so.
Because it's the next week.
Well, that's right. Miss Philosophical over here.
Yeah, no, we're super lucky, super excited this time of year, as always. We last week didn't disappoint, and this week will definitely exceed expectations.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. Of course, leave us your questions, your comments.
Subscribe.
Check us out. Bye.